All right, welcome up to day 2, or part 2. We're looking at chapter 1 in my book. You can pick it up online at lulu.com. Pick it up now. That works into, I didn't say this in the introduction, but this book works in conjunction with my workbook, in a projection training program workshop, or workbook, I should say. And that is more of the skill building aspect of the knowledge, the passive knowledge. Here you're acquiring, you're reading, and there are some exercises at the end of these chapters as well. But the workbook goes into the exercises or the skill building, self-understanding aspect of the training in much more detail. Okay. Anyways, with no further ado, chapter 1. Where do you begin? The self, of course, student interest, ability, character assessment for career success. Okay. So do you know what type of person you are? Are you a creative person? Are you a very open-ended, abstract, creative thinker? In that case, you're probably not one who thinks very logically or linearly, right? I can do both for some odd reason. Maybe I think by nature I'm more of a creative person, but since I grew up with a dad who was a mechanical engineer and went to Brown University, so this guy was a major right-brained person, very logical, almost no left brain whatsoever. He did take an art class one time, I think, because he was probably getting a little too uptight with all that right-brainedness and that engineering environment. And he took a art class once and he built this like Salvador Dali clock, and it was kind of like a melting clock, like time melting. I thought that was great. And he obviously had some creative skills, but never really developed them. Anyways, yeah. And if you don't develop them, if you have creative skills or whatever, you're a good singer or a good visual artist or whatever, you don't use them, you're going to lose them, as they say, right? So the first thing the book talks about is your strengths, right? What are your strengths? What are those things that you have a natural propensity for, tendency for? Where do you go naturally? And I talked about this in the introduction. Do you naturally wake up in the morning and want to draw, want to sing, want to read, want to call someone and engage with someone, want to go off on a walk all by yourself alone and reflect and think and contemplate, right? And talk into a recorder, what are your natural tendencies? And these tendencies you should not work against, but with, right? Because in all likelihood, this is where your livelihood, speaking of hood, this is where your livelihood will come from. Those tendencies that are natural, innate, right? And if you come to them naturally, more likely than not, you're good at them. You've probably used them more than doing other things, right? I'm not a drawer. I can't draw. I'm terrible with my hands. I'm not a mechanical person. So those two things that I would never, paths I would never go down, right? As far as career is concerned. But one of the first things I ever did, I was always reading. I'd wake up and read books. I'd read books during the day. I'd read books at night. I was always reading before I went to sleep, right? So no surprise, I end up, writing books. I've written 8, 9 books, 10 books, hundreds of articles, essays, poetry, dozens of poems, and so forth, right? So I'm a language person. That is my strength. That is a major strength. But I also am good at acquiring a lot of knowledge. I'm very curious. I like to see how things work. That's why I've read hundreds of books, probably read 1,000 or more books by now. Started out with fiction, but then moved into nonfiction. By the time I was in my early 30s, no longer was I reading fiction. I can't think of a last time I read a piece of fiction. Since that time, I've read history books. I've read books on the government, on the Constitution, on Declaration of Independence, Federalist Papers, the Federal Reserve, finance, banking, taxation, trade, science. I've read books by Einstein. Read book by Richard Feynman, who titled it Six Easy Pieces. He felt that if physics was so great, then he should be able to teach it to incoming freshmen. It should be a common denominator. If it's that great, we should be able to communicate it to the majority easily, right? Not with a lot of math or training background, and so forth. So I read books in science. I've read books on mathematics. I've read books on finance. I've read books, economic books, just philosophy, theology. In theology, I've read the Dhammapada, the Rig Veda, the Analects of Confucius, the Quran, the Book of Mormon, the Old and the New Testament. All right, just read. That's my passion, right? So me ending up being a college professor, a lecturer, an informer, an educator, a coach, career coach, life coach. I'm doing exactly what I should. I don't want to say exactly. Doing what I should be doing. Okay. I don't think anybody is ever 100% exactly doing what they want to be doing or should be doing, but I'm at least in the 90 percentile, right? So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses and shortcomings? Now, we have a lot of those. I had a bunch. There's a book titled Thick-Faced Blackheart, written by Ching-Ning Chu, a businesswoman, no longer with us. But in that book, it listed probably a dozen common things or characteristics or traits of people that will bring you down. And again, I got to look it up. I got to find it. I can't give you specific examples because it's been a while since I looked at it. But it keeps popping into my mind, so I'm going to have to look it up. And I realized that when I was younger, I did all of those things often. But as I worked on them over the years, I started to, if not eliminate, lessen the chance of me falling into those bad habits. I think there were something like that, like 12 bad habits, or bad habits, things you don't want to do as a human being. And I looked at them, looked at the whole list, and I said, there's 2 or 3 I still kind of do, occasionally. The other ones I'm pretty much under control. Right? So you really have to work on shoring up those weaknesses, right? Do you have a tendency to wake up too late? Do you have a tendency to not listen? Do you have a tendency to not follow through on what you say you're going to do, right? Do you have poor concentration skills? Do you communicate poorly? Do you focus poorly, right? There's a lot of things, and I think in that list, I had a couple of those that were in that list from that book, Thick-Faced Blackheart. So you really have to lessen or eliminate, if you can, but at least lessen, become aware of, first and foremost, right? An awareness. It all begins with awareness, right? And then moving from over there. What is your character? That's the next section, right? And that's where the Briggs-Myers typology test, or the Jung, Jung, the Jung typology test comes into play, right? And it really takes a look at I think there's 16 personality types. And I think there's 4, is there 4 letters? You end up getting 4 letters, like T, J, M, P. And, you're basically an intuitive, logical, something, right? And I'm basically, I don't remember the letters, but I know that I am basically an open-ended, abstract, creative thinker who loves to problem solve, but problem solve at the larger level, not at the small, intimate level, such as with family. If you could define yourself like that, man, you're going to be, I don't want to say miles beyond everybody else, but you're going to be in the front of the class. You're going to be at the head of the class, right? Understanding yourself. And if you understand yourself, then you'll be able to move forward with much more precision, power, accuracy, vim, and vigor, right? Really want to punch it up. So you want to know that stuff, right? All right, what else we got? This talks about moral inventory. I'll just leave that in the book for now. That's not something that I really want to get into at this point. But that if you're going to take away anything from this video, short video, let's keep it short and sweet. If you're going to take away anything from this video is you want definitions, right? Define you. Take that Briggs-Myers typology test, the Jung typology test. Really find out who you are, all right? Start writing down, interview yourself. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. That type of journalistic questioning, right? What do I want? Where do I come from? What are my strengths? What do I want to be doing? What do I have to do? What seems interesting, somewhat interesting? What are the essential things? What do I need to do? What do I have to do? All right? Got to do. Can't live without stuff. Start putting those things down, right? Some of the things you can live without, whatever. But the stuff that you need, can't live without. That's the stuff of genius. That is the stuff of great lives. That's the stuff that makes great lives, or is at the foundation, the root of great lives, right? Great lives, great living, great being. And on that note, we'll say goodbye for today. Take care.